Hiya, so I just wanted to introduce you to one of the main concepts we use at Face Up Theatre, both in our theatre performances for the community work that we do, but also in the learning and development work we do. And it's proved particularly useful when working with groups of staff, exploring issues of communication in the workplace, be that holding difficult conversations and performance management, or maybe more that kind of day-to-day customer service sort of interactions that people might have. So I'm going to introduce that to you now, and it's something quite simple. It's a mask, and often at the beginning of training I get one of these out and just ask people this question: where in life do you see masks? And you might say, I see them in the theatre, I see them in bank robberies. I hope you don't see too many bank robberies, but we can imagine that they might get used in bank robberies. We see them in hospitals, doctors wearing masks to protect themselves, patients wearing masks for breathing apparatus. We see them in the workplace in terms of a welder's mask, people working in engineering, things like that, keeping themselves safe so they don't breathe in hazardous fibres and smoke. So masks can do quite a lot of things for us. They can change our identity, they can hide who we are, and they can also protect us from other people, but also keep other people safe. So there's a big variety of masks, and then of course there's that well-known metaphor or concept of mask, which we hear used all the time in everyday language, putting on a brave face, facing up to it, masking it, anything like that. Those kind of phrases come up quite often. They're the only ones I can think of right now, but I'm sure you can think of more than I can. So the great thing about using a mask is it allows us to access those metaphors and speak to people about that process. So in everyday life we all put on a mask of our own. We all choose what we share with the people that are around us. There's usually far more going on. People talk about the tip of the iceberg. That's just the bit that we see, and I guess that's just the mask. That's the bit that we choose to share. And as we grow in life, we learn to use different types of masks with different people in different situations. So probably the way that you behave with someone that's really close to you, a loved one, a child, your mum, your partner, would be different to the way that you behave in the workplace. So often our masks are dependent on our environment, and that's great. That's a really useful thing to learn. The problem is that sometimes we might work within a situation or organisation where maybe we have to do quite a tough job. We've recently done quite a lot of work with the police and with the fire service, and those people have to see some pretty awful things in their lives, and they need to keep themselves safe. So they protect themselves in a way through the use of their own masks. However, sometimes when those people have been working in that organisation and managing themselves in a particular way on the front line, if they move into management roles, they then have a responsibility to look after the people that are with them, and sometimes the masks that they've used and learnt in the workplace are not appropriate for those management conversations, and that's where perhaps we get slightly more aggressive leadership styles, or people not feeling able to communicate about some of the softer skills and some of the more personal issues that people might face at work. So what we do is we bring in the mask, and I play a character, and I put the mask on like this, and I will show a short scene in which I show some behaviours with the mask on. And what's interesting about that is obviously when I put this mask on I do look quite different. Some of you might say it's an improvement. So I put the mask on, and to start with that's a bit strange for everybody. There's a guy walking around with a mask on, but very, very, very quickly people begin to get used to it. And that in itself is interesting in terms of how we get used to behaviour, how we begin to accept the masks that are around us as normal behaviour. So the great thing about having this mask is that I can take it off, and when I take it off we can talk about the behaviour, the mask, separate to the individual that's wearing that mask. And that's a really useful distinction to have as a manager, to be able to think about the behaviours, the masks that your staff are showing, or to think about your own masks, and then consider what's underneath it, what might be driving that. And if we can get to those issues and unpick those a little bit more, then often the quality of the conversation that a manager can have with their staff is much more powerful, much more in-depth, much more insightful, and much more likely to change those behaviour outcomes that are currently going on. So yeah, I can tell you a little bit more about masks. We've got another set of 8 different masks that I would use and then demonstrate to a group of people that I'm working with. But I'm not going to tell you about those right now. You can tune in to one of our other videos and I'll share each one with you one at a time. Okay, thanks very much for watching.